What is up? Coach Emma here, and welcome back to the Fit Habit Life podcast, where we cut through the noise, talk real health and fitness, sustainable fat loss, and habits that actually work. And on today's podcast, I will be talking about why former athletes tend to gravitate towards extremes and why that keeps you stuck when it comes to body composition goals. And I do the same thing. So this is coming from a place of personal experience, not from a place of judgment. So anyway, but before I dig in, I just wanted to thank everybody who's been listening to the podcast consistently. If you're listening right now, thank you so much. If you've been enjoying the show, if you could rate the show, share it, subscribe, that just helps me get in front of more people, which helps me help more people. So thanks. But anyway, time to dig into today's topic. But before we do that, I just wanted to say I'm super jazzed today because this is like the first real snow that we've kind of had. I mean, we've had a couple days, but we're getting snow. So excited to go up to the mountain, hopefully within the next week. Hopefully we keep getting snow because the base is really low. It's like 70 inches or something, which is not good. So anyway, I'm jazzed today. But that's completely off topic, but I'm just excited and I figured I'd share. And if you're a Utah local, hopefully you can get up on the slopes soon. And if you're not, you should come visit. And if you do, hit me up. We can go snowboarding together or whatever. But yeah, I was really excited about that because, you know, when it's winter and you live in a place where it's supposed to snow and it's either really cold and windy or it's raining, or there's just no snow. It's like, what's the point? It's too cold outside to do anything. And it's not cold enough to like do fun snow things. So anyway, grateful today. But anyway, back to the main topic. So I wanted to talk about why like former athletes tend to gravitate towards extremes because I've been working with a lot of former athletes recently. Division I athletes, actually, which is kind of cool because I am one as well. And so I think my message tends to resonate with a lot of them because they're like, wow, I feel like I've gone through the same thing she has, or she understands me because she's the same way. And so in general, to be an elite athlete, you have to be very driven, hardworking. You put your head down and grind and just work hard all the time, especially if you don't have the skill. Like, so personally, I was not the best water polo player. I was actually the slowest swimmer on the team for a really long time. And because of that, I had like a chip on my shoulder and I wanted to be the best. So I was working out, and for performance, working out more frequently. So like doing double days, sometimes triple days, that actually leads to better performance because you're practicing the training as long as you're fueling properly. And so I was working way harder than I needed to, but very hard to get to where I was. And I ended up being one of the fastest people on the team. And this is like a very athlete mentality. So basically, we think more is better. And so if a little is good, doing more is better because when it comes to skills, skill development, sports, athletics, the harder you work, the better you become. And the more playing time you get, just the sports benefits are great. And so we tend to think that works for everything. Body composition change, work, relationships, life, whatever. Give 120, really 200% of our efforts into something. And so a lot of former athletes are very driven, type A, either business owners, entrepreneurs, executives, high level, up in companies, workaholics, kind of. And working really hard and grinding and work, that can definitely like lead to more success in that industry. Obviously, it can lead to burnout and other things. But usually working really hard in work and sports leads to better results. Usually there's arguments that can be made. But when it comes to body composition, that's not the case. And so what I used to do when I was trying to lose weight is I would work out twice a day. I would drastically cut my calories. I'd cut out entire food groups. And you know where that left me? Very stuck. That left me very stuck. I was not getting the results that I had wanted. I was working really hard, overly stressed, poor sleep, and my body composition wasn't really changing at all. So that tends to be really common, what I've noticed with a lot of former athletes. And they tend to gravitate towards very extreme things because it makes sense if you think about it. Like with sports, if you're working out 2 times a day, if you're eat, sleep, and breathing the sport that you play, like you're going to get better. You're going to be top tier. But for body composition change, it doesn't work that way. And it's really the right dose of training to build muscle, maintain muscle tissue, a sustainable calorie deficit, which is not extreme at all. It's probably 2 to 500 calories below maintenance, depending on your body, how your body responds. And just getting in daily movement. You don't need to work out twice a day. You don't need to cut out entire food groups. In fact, usually I like to try to, what I've noticed with most of my former athletes or entrepreneurs, business executives, high up, hardworking type A sort of people, they tend to not eat breakfast and not eat a lot of carbs. And so usually we're actually increasing the carb intake, increasing the protein intake, increasing the amount of food that they're eating, and their body then starts to respond. So it's funny how that works when you're fueling your body for performance in the gym, for training, not for being an elite athlete anymore, but just to train, work hard, get stronger. When you're fueling that, your body's going to respond very well. And part of the fueling process, or the muscle building process, the recovery process, or my words are going all over the place today. Dang. Okay. Part of the process of building muscle, leaning out, is recovery. And most of us, former athletes, work really hard and we don't like to take breaks. I am the same way. I don't like to recover. I like to train every day. If I can train multiple times a day, I'm happy. So we tend to deprioritize. We just add more stressors to our cup, but we're not we're not emptying the cup. So the cup just keeps getting overflown with stressors, and I just hit the microphone. Cool. Overflowing with stressors. And our body can't adequately recover in order to elicit the adaptation that we want. And so we're basically spinning our wheels, right? And so that was a lesson that took me a really long time to learn, was what actually is an appropriate dose of training? What actually is an appropriate amount of calories to consume in a deficit? And you don't need to cut out entire food groups. You don't need to fast. You don't need to work out double days. It does not need to be extreme at all. And in fact, the extremes are what are hurting your results. So it's that the athlete mentality tends to like the all or nothing thinking, because that works really well with sports. It's you give 100, 200% effort all the time. And it's funny because, not funny, but most athletes get really burnt out after their college experience. Maybe they go and play professionally. They get really burnt out. And oftentimes a lot of athletes stop working out altogether. But they continue to eat the quantities of food that they ate before, and which is why a lot of former athletes tend to to not have the body composition that they want. They tend to feel uncomfortable in their bodies because they were used to eating whatever they wanted, however much they wanted, because they were working out 4+ hours a day. And they didn't see changes in the mirror if they were eating ice cream every day or, on the weekends going crazy with drinking to unwind. So when they were an athlete and they were working out like crazy, they didn't have to pay attention to the fuel or the food that they were consuming as much. They were so active, they didn't even have to think about what they had to do. They just had to show up at the certain times they were supposed to show up, and someone would make them work out. But when they graduated or end their college career, they start working full time. They don't have that same structure. They don't have that same level of activity. And if you think about too, I haven't worked with, I might be working with a former professional athlete, but I don't think I've worked with many former professional athletes, but most collegiate athletes, most people are walking all day to and from classes, to and from practice, to and from their apartment or home or whatever. And they're training at least 2 hours a day, usually more. You're so active, you really don't have to worry as much about what you're putting in your body. I mean, you should, because my performance would have improved way more. I would have been a better athlete had I fueled properly and chosen better options. But I didn't have to actually worry about it as much. My freshman year, I did get very heavy because I way overindulged. I was not eating protein. I was eating foods that were causing inflammation, gut health. I was drinking excessively, really ridiculous amounts of alcohol. It was crazy. I'm not proud of it. But it happened, and I learned a lot from that experience. And the irony is, now I hardly drink at all. I think last year, maybe the whole year, maybe I had 6 beers. I like beer. I like fancy beer. I don't really like wine or cocktails. So yeah, maybe I had 5 beers, maybe 1 or 2 cocktails a whole year. So anyway, and that would be one night of multiple throughout the week. So we've leveled up, people. But anyway, had I been anyway, my junior and senior year, I started being more, I guess, deliberate about the foods I was putting into my body. But I was still consuming close to 4,000 calories a day because I was super active and I needed it. I was always hungry. If any of you went to Santa Clara University, were in the School of Engineering, and had a class with this chick who was just always eating shit, that was me. I was literally eating all day. My backpack was not filled with books. It was filled with food. So, anyway, point being, when you go from being extremely active, I probably wasn't even eating enough because of the amount of activity I was doing. So when you're extremely active, and then you go from walking everywhere all the time, training multiple hours a day, and then you go to a sedentary desk job, because that's what a lot of people do nowadays. Most people who go to college get some sort of degree, especially a driven individual who is an elite athlete. They tend to end up in, big companies, higher up. Maybe they're entrepreneurs, but usually you're working behind a desk most of the day. Most are not doing some sort of manual labor after the fact. I know some of the men's team I played water polo in college. Some of the men's water polo players ended up being firemen for fun. That's pretty active. You can lift. Well, actually, not really, because I guess they sit on their ass until there is an emergency, but they have lifting equipment. Point being, the lifestyle is so drastic of a shift that most former athletes, former elite athletes, tend to gain a bunch of weight. Our men's team, they looked like completely different people in season versus out of season. Like, they'd probably each put on 30 plus pounds. Like, it was crazy. And that's kind of how their lives go. And they either, like former athletes, they either continue to train to an obscene amount, which is what I did for a long time, because that's the only way they know how to maintain their body composition, is doing elite sports like Ironmans, long cardio sessions like marathon training, and triathlons, or like CrossFit, or like very high intensity stuff, or they continue to play their sport. It's kind of harder with water polo. It's not as common. What I did is I swam, and I still trained 3 to 4 hours a day when my final season was canceled when COVID hit. And I was working out like 4 hours a day still. So that's what I did. And then I burnt out. And oftentimes that's really common. It's like, you're burnt out. You've been training. A lot of people have been playing their sport when they go play it in college, probably close to 18. Maybe that's depends on the sport. Water polo tends to not be, I mean, now kids are starting a lot younger, but usually it's like middle school, high school. So maybe 12 years or something. But a lot of sports is like 12, 15 plus years that people are playing them. And they're like, I'm done. I've been training my whole life almost. I'm burnt out. And so they stop. I was not taught anything about nutrition in school, in athletics, at all. Obviously, I knew like eating fruits and vegetables was good. I didn't know anything about protein or how to fuel my performance or training. So yeah. So that's why most athletes, they either continue overtraining, overstressed, end up with gut health issues, hormone imbalances, like me, and I also gained weight. So it was like all of the things, or they get obese and they gain a lot of weight and they struggle to lose it, because when they associate healthier body composition or looking better or better physique, they associate that with their collegiate self or their whatever elite level of sports. Maybe it was high school. Maybe you were like elite high school athlete. You associate that body that you want with the excessive amounts of training. And that's just not realistic for most people. Also, most sports are not conducive to muscle building, which is the most important thing to help your metabolic health. Like, the more muscle tissue you have, the healthier your metabolism, the more you can consume without gaining weight. And the healthier your hormones are, better energy levels, better immune system. Just everything is better with more muscle tissue. Obviously, there's like a point of diminishing return, which is where the bodybuilders push to. But really, focusing on training properly, like strength training, you do not need to do more than like 4 sessions a week. Like, I train 4 times a week for 45 minutes to an hour. Strength training. And for a while, I was just doing that, and I was like walking, and that was it. Now I am training for my alumni game for fun and to see how well I can train myself back into water polo shape, because I haven't swam. It was like a year and a half since the last time that I swam, until a couple weeks ago. So I'm doing that now, and I'm monitoring my performance, my recovery, how I'm feeling, and I'm gonna up my carbs as my intensity increases to fuel myself properly, to recover properly, because I'm not trying to lose body fat. So I'm adding in cardio, swimming, water polo specific training. But anyway, you don't need to do that to lose body fat. All you need to do is be active, train to build muscle, be in a slight caloric surplus. The one caveat is, if you haven't trained in a while, you should not be going into a fat loss phase. You should start training, focus on building muscle, improving your metabolic function, improving your daily energy levels, improving your daily healthy habits. That's going to set you up for a very successful fat loss phase in the long term. But hopefully, this makes sense as to why athletes tend to gravitate towards extremes. Because the basic stuff seems too basic. It seems too simple. Like, how is it that simple? How come I don't have to work out every day? That's crazy, right? Because I'm used to working out twice a day for 4 hours, and you're saying to lose body fat, I only have to work out 4 times a week for like 45 minutes to an hour? Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying. And that's the craziest thing. The biggest thing that is going to hold anyone who has that all or nothing mentality back is themselves. Because what have you got to lose? And I have some clients who still struggle, and we're having the same conversations over and over again. I'm like, look, last week you didn't do anything. So if you do one thing this week, if you do one exercise this week, you're moving the needle, you're improving. You're moving in the right direction. It doesn't have to go from 0 to 2 hours a day in the gym. No, you could literally go to the gym one time this week, do one set of one exercise if you did nothing last week, and you're improving. And that's the hardest thing to get athletes to realize. You don't have to do as much as you think. So anyway, if this episode was helpful, if you're like, that is me, I am resonating with that and I'm really struggling and I'm ready to get some help, then reach out to me. I have a discovery call you can book below. We can see if we'd be a good fit and then move forward from there. If that's what you'd like to do, if we both decide that's the next right step. Otherwise, if you've just been getting so much value that you don't need coaching, that's great too. Hopefully that's not the case. I have my own coach. It's extremely valuable. But if you've been getting a lot of value, please just rate the show, subscribe, share it. It just helps me help more people and get in front of more people and debunk a bunch of the crap that's out there, which we're constantly inundated with. So, like now we went from weighted vest walking to vibration plates. It's like, okay, dude, like just lift weights 2 to 4 times a week, walk more, eat more protein, eat more fiber, get more sleep. Stick to the basics, drink more water. And you don't need some fancy vibration plate. You don't need a weighted vest. You don't need to eat within a tiny window. You don't need to cut out carbs. You just have to stick to the basics and the results will follow. So anyway, thank you for listening, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.